I'm Susan Euler. If you had to pick 4 artists who revolutionized art, who would you choose?
There are literally thousands of artworks, as well as hundreds of artists from all time periods who have had a major impact on Western art. So, in order to choose only 4, I have used very specific criteria. First, innovation. The artist must have created or significantly refined a new way of working or seeing that was different from what was commonly being done at the time. Secondly, the artist must have been influential, not necessarily universally loved and applauded or free from criticism or even totally original, but they must have made a substantial and wide-ranging impact. And 3, that impact had to have been long-lasting. It had to have withstood the test of time. So, in chronological order, let's see who I've chosen. Number 1, Polycleitus. Polycleitus was a Greek sculptor who lived in the 5th century BC, during what is referred to as the Classical period. This is also the period in which the Parthenon was built. During his lifetime, Polycleitus was known for bronze sculptures depicting athletes epitomizing the Greek ideal of young male good looks. He also wrote a very influential treatise on art, known as the Canon. The word canon, spelled with a K in Greek, literally means standard or measuring rod. In the canon, Polycleitus described his approach to sculpture based on the concept that a statue should be composed of clearly definable parts related to one another through a system of ideal mathematical proportions and balance. To illustrate his theories, he created the Doryphorus, or spear-bearer. The original Doryphorus, which was made of bronze, is lost, but it was so influential that many marble copies were made, giving us a very good idea of how the original must have looked. Polycleitus explained that in order to make a sculpture look lifelike and theoretically capable of movement, the body should be posed using a dynamic system of counterbalance, in which some body parts are tensed and others relaxed. Today, this is known by the Italian term contrapposto, a very natural human stance in which most of the body's weight is carried on one leg. Polycleitus did not invent contrapposto. The so-called Critias boy, dating from around 30 years before Polycleitus' time, is the earliest known example of the stance. But it was Polycleitus who explained and popularized the concept. He thus played the crucial role in liberating sculpture from the block-like poses typical of his and previous eras, in which movement was indicated by a rigid, awkward, flat-footed stance with one foot forward, the classic Frankenstein pose. Now that you know about the contrapposto stance and Polycleitus' canon of body proportions, you can see them referenced everywhere, in sculpture, in cartoons and comic books, in paintings, and in poses of fashion models. It was a revolutionary concept, one that truly changed the style of Western art forever. Number 2, Giotto. Giotto da Bondone was born near Florence around 1267, during the late Middle Ages, a period known in Italy as the Proto-Renaissance. When Giotto was born, Florence Cathedral did not yet have its famous dome. There was no Medici chapel or bell tower known as Giotto's Campanile, because, well, as the name implies, it was Giotto himself who designed it. When Giotto began his career, the prevailing style in Italy was Italo-Byzantine, a stylized and richly embellished form of religious art inspired by Byzantine icons. Giotto sometimes painted in this style because, like all artists at his time, he worked entirely on commission. However, his paintings were always more lifelike and portrayed the subjects as real people instead of idealized religious figures. This was the key to his success and lasting influence. His contemporary, Giovanni Villani, praised Giotto for drawing all his figures and their postures according to nature. 2 centuries later, Giorgio Vasari wrote in his Lives of the Most Excellent Painters that it was Giotto who made the decisive break with the prevalent Italo-Byzantine style by introducing the technique of drawing accurately from life. Life drawing became a staple of drawing instruction during the Renaissance, just as it is today. Giotto's masterpiece is the fresco cycle in the Scrovegni Chapel in Padua. Completed in 1305, the frescoes depict the life of the Virgin Mary and the life of Christ. The figures are solidly three-dimensional and wear ordinary clothes that hang naturally instead of swirling around in purely decorative gold-embellished folds. Most importantly, the faces, gestures, emotions, and direct eye contact are based on close observation of how real people look and behave. In addition, Giotto set his scenes in a naturalistic setting instead of posing them against plain gold backgrounds. And he may have been the first to use foreshortening, a perspective drawing technique that creates the illusion of three-dimensional space. So, when you admire the realistic poses, use of perspective, and accurate portrayal of human emotions in the paintings of later Renaissance artists such as Masaccio and Michelangelo, notice how much they owed to Giotto, a debt they fully recognized and acknowledged. Number 3, Caravaggio. Florentine painters used medium-value colors and generalized lighting. Even when a dark background was used, the subject itself was free of shadows. But in the final years of the High Renaissance, a painter from Lombardy, trained in Milan instead of Florence, changed everything. This painter was Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio. Like Giotto, Caravaggio closely observed nature and human behavior. And also like Giotto, he used ordinary people as the models for his religious figures. But the dominant stylistic elements in Caravaggio's work are the rich jewel-like colors and the strong value contrast between light and shade, a technique known as chiaroscuro. It revolutionized painting. Here's how chiaroscuro works. In this painting by Caravaggio, The Calling of St. Matthew, which is a Christian biblical story, Jesus himself is shown entering a basement room where Matthew, then a tax collector, is busy counting money. Jesus is barely noticeable. What Caravaggio shows us is the light that floods into the darkened room. We can call it the light of Christ or the light of salvation. It falls onto the figure of St. Matthew, who looks up surprised and points to himself as if asking, "Are you looking for me?" The hand of Jesus is also brightly lit. As an homage to Michelangelo, it is a reversed image of the hand of Adam from the Sistine ceiling. The hand of Adam is limp and lifeless because God has not yet touched him to give him life. Likewise, St. Matthew has not yet accepted the new life of salvation being offered to him by Jesus. Caravaggio himself was a very troubled man who once portrayed himself as the severed head of the slain Goliath. But his dramatic paintings filled with scenes of torture and violent death were a perfect fit for the new 17th century Baroque style. His influence can be seen in the work of artists as diverse as Rubens, Rembrandt, and Bernini, and his dark, emotion-filled style continued to be influential for the next 200 years until it was edged out by Impressionism. However, in photography and movies, Caravaggio's dramatic chiaroscuro is still widely used, a testament to his lasting impact on art. Number 4, Picasso. Pablo Picasso created what we know as modern art. We cannot underestimate the impact his works have had on artists, painters as well as sculptors, printmakers, and graphic designers. When Picasso first introduced Cubism with Les Demoiselles d'Avignon in 1907, it caused a sensation. Of course, Cubism was widely criticized, but it was never dismissed outright. People sensed right away that it was something important. Marcel Duchamp's nude descending a staircase, which caused such an uproar in 1913, was inspired by Picasso, as was the work of the Futurists, the Orphists, the Suprematists, and the Dadaists, and many more. Russian constructivism was directly inspired by Picasso's assemblages, which Vladimir Tatlin saw on a visit to Picasso's studio. And it was Picasso, along with his associates Braque and Gris, who invented collage, now a staple of art curriculum worldwide, as well as being a favorite medium of many artists. The bold shapes and large areas of flatly painted color, typical of geometric abstraction and hard-edged abstraction, were also inspired by Picasso and Cubism. In addition, Picasso made sculpture out of found objects, created innovative graphics, and made bold jewelry and colorful ceramics in a distinctive abstract style that is much copied today. Who doesn't have a coffee mug or a tea towel or a set of dishes done in the style of Picasso? So, no artist in the history of Western art has been more influential or as widely imitated and admired as Pablo Picasso. His unique vision changed the very definition of art.
For the 10-Minute Professor, this is Dr. Susan Ray Hewlett. Thanks for tuning in.